I think it was 2 months ago when I saw this picture of this beautiful Palestinian girl holding up a picture on her phone. The picture, of course, is in stark contrast to her own state, which emaciated to the point that she has that characteristic swollen look that comes with malnutrition, extreme malnutrition. And in that particular piece, she's almost lamenting the fact, a word that I would never associate with a child, of her hair. She's losing her hair, which is, of course, another symptom of extreme malnutrition. From that day onwards, I don't think I've ever looked at a plate of food the same way. I say this without exaggeration, without playing to the camera, but ever since the ceasefire was broken by Israel, and it has continued its genocide in Gaza, compounding that with a complete blockade of the Strip, denying food, water, and other relief and medical aid. I have been uneasy with looking at a plate of food. We take for granted 3 square meals because in this day and age of plenty, in this age where we have been given so much and access to all of these things is almost a given. I can't imagine a people, and I will segue there a little by saying it's not that sort of in the communities and societies that we live in the countries that we live in today, there are not people who go hungry. Yes, there are. Sort of hunger is a pernicious problem. But the wholesale starvation of a people, that is something that I find so hard to reconcile, I find so hard to reckon, because sort of as a human being, there are certain, again, expectations, there are certain things that we need and we almost demand that these are essentials and we cannot do without. They're non-negotiables, so to speak. Food, of course, water, the air that we breathe. And to be denied that is beyond criminality. It is an evil that I think that now the state of Israel has come to represent. I'm not pausing for effect, but I just keep on going back because it is almost now seared into my memory, into my mind, that image of that little girl. But that girl, the image, I was going to be even further horrified, because that image, not to say that she was in any good state or that the child was better off than others, but having seen images over the past couple of weeks now of children in the almost extreme states of malnutrition, where they are now emaciated, skin and bones, literally. That swollen belly, those sunken eye sockets, they're almost skeletal. And these are children, these are not adults. I question those. I don't question them, I condemn them. I condemn the entire state of Israel. And yes, this is something for which I will be accused of anti-Semitism. I couldn't care less, because if we remain silent in the face of such horror, of such evil, of such man-made evil, then I think we have relinquished our right to be human, Because again, this is something that Israel has been waging this genocide on. Their rights, the right to self-defense, the right to exist. But I say this, what rights do you have when you have condemned a people so? When you have treated a people to such when you have condemned a people to such a level, to such a base humanity. It's not even base humanity, it is sort of this animalism. It is exactly, I will go now, and I think I'm going to actually say this, because I was maybe perhaps saving this for, I think, somewhere later on in this conversation. But that very same picture of this child, I'm forgetting the child's name, and I'm hoping that you, as I am right now, are able to sort of picture the child. Rags and bones, that is all the child is. I think barely a toddler, 3 years old, 2 years old. And the mother, helpless, has nothing to feed him. And it is crying. And while an adult perhaps may understand why such savagery is being done to them, what can be told, what comfort can be given to this child? None whatsoever. Have the people of Israel forgotten what happened to their forebears? Because in recent memory, and they're always quick to remind us, because they are incapable of a genocide, but a Holocaust is something that is what entirely happened to them. And no one is denying that. No one is denying what happened to the 6 million Jews of Europe. But have they forgotten what happened to their forebears? Have they forgotten what happened to the Jews of Poland in the Warsaw Ghetto? There are pictures, and you can please Google this. You can find them, of similarly skeletal bodies of infants. Because again, when the Nazis did take Poland, a similar blockade of their ghettos, of the Jewish ghettos, was done. And knowing that it is infants, the elderly, who are most susceptible to such tactics, such a strategy, that food was denied them. Have they forgotten what happened to those in the concentration camps? Rail thin, carried out, because they couldn't walk, they were so weak. I say this without theatrics, I say this without any embellishment. But if that does not bring you to tears, seeing another human being wasting away, then again, you do not have the right to claim any humanity. You do not have the right to claim self-defense. You do not have the right to say that you must exist. If any one people or any one ism in this day and age can claim to be the successors of Nazis, it's not the skinheads, it's not the EDL, it's not the KKK, it's not any of these far-right groups in Europe. No, it's Zionists. Zionists today are the true inheritors of the Nazi legacy. And it's not the past 2 years of this genocide on Gaza that has proven this point. It's the past 75 years. They have taken their victimhood and weaponized it to the point, to a knife's edge, sharpened it to a point where they do not see the humanity in anyone else. For them, and this is not me saying this, please Google this. Google the various speeches and quotes of Smotrich or Ben-Gvir or Daniela Weiss. I mean, it was Ben-Gvir himself who said this the other day, after the mounting pressure on Netanyahu, who did have the time to take out and be interviewed by the Nelk boys or whatever they're called and actually talk about who had the better burger, McDonald's or Burger King, while he starved a population wholesale. So Ben-Gvir said that Netanyahu has demonstrated a moral bankruptcy by capitulating, by allowing aid into Gaza. All we need to send to them are bombs. But we'll get into the statements in a bit, because there was one other piece that sort of had me thinking since last week, since this was these statistics. And this brings to mind Disraeli's famous quote that there are three types of lies: lies, damn lies, and statistics. So using their very own numbers, the almost Orwellian construction that is the GHF, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, they put out this number, and which was then parroted subsequently by every Zionist shill out there, chief among which is the US government and its State Department, that 85 million meals have been distributed in the Gaza Strip. Now, considering that this blockade has been going on for almost about 4 to 5 months, around 120, 150 days, and considering that the Ministry of Truth, that is the Israeli government and every other Western government out there, and of course the BBC's, CNN, New York Times, all of them, that no civilians have been killed, and that there still exist almost, 2 million plus civilians in Gaza. At 3 meals a day, which to a Zionist, these calorie-counting Zionists, may be too much, because apparently the Gazans are getting fat. But even at 3 meals a day, which the rest of us take for granted, that would mean that in Gaza you'd need 6 million meals a day. Having distributed only 85 million meals, that means that they've only given enough food for about 2 weeks. What about the other 100 plus days? By their statistics alone, the aid that has been getting into Gaza has been insufficient. Of course, according to them, the food is being hijacked, stolen by Hamas. Hamas, who is now being fed on baby formula, apparently. In an interview the other day with Cindy McCain, the executive director of the World Food Programme, Becky Anderson of CNN kept on trying to drive this point home, kept on asking her, is there any evidence that Hamas has stolen the food? Once, twice, thrice this question is asked. And 3 times it is refuted by Ms. McCain, saying that there is no evidence to suggest that any armed group is getting the food, because there is no food to steal. That's, of course, my little attack. I'm adding that to that. But the World Food Programme has said there's no evidence. An internal US review has said that there is no evidence that Hamas is stealing the food. Even the Israeli government, I think that there was another one that was done recently in the past couple of days, suggests that no food is being stolen, because again, not enough food is entering the strip to steal, let alone to hoard. If the starvation of Gaza does not constitute a war crime, what does? Again, in recent interview by Jeremy Bowen of the BBC, surprisingly, they've actually grown a backbone. Never expected this of the BBC. He speaks to a contractor who was hired by the GHF, a retired lieutenant colonel from the US Army, I think a Mr. Aguilar. And in the interview, he comes out on record to say that the IDF and the US mercenaries, or the mercenaries who have been hired by the GHF, have committed war crimes. It has been very well documented over the past weeks that all of these Gazans, desperate and hungry, having to walk for miles to get this food, are being shot at, and not with just machine guns, but with mortar rounds, with tank shells. And yet the Israelis continue to deny this. No civilians have been killed. At what point, petulant child Donald Trump said, when he was sitting across from the head of the EU, said that we've given $60 million apparently to fund the GHF, and we've nary gotten a thank you. Well, I think you'd get a thank you when you'd stop supplying 2,000-pound bombs. I mean, that's sort of like, the river of material that's going towards Israel. I mean, if you cut that back, then perhaps somebody would actually nominate you for a Nobel Peace Prize, which is something you're just dying for. But then even he had perhaps the humanity, I don't know, to admit, I think this is 2 days ago, that what's happening is a starvation in Gaza, number one. You can't fake those pictures. And yet we are expected to take the Israeli side, who on their, I think it was Channel 13, Channel 14, were mocking the mother of the child who is starving to death. And then they say, we have a right to exist. No, I don't think you do. You've relinquished your right when you have put your fellow man through this. I mean, I cannot imagine. I mean, for me, it is unimaginable. The history books are replete with famines, from the Irish famine, the Bengal famine. What happened in the USSR? What happened in China? What happened in Ethiopia? That galvanized the world. I mean, you had Live Aid, you had all of these, Bruce Springsteens and Michael Jacksons and all of the stars of the 80s, all of that heyday, sort of unite. Bob Geldof in particular driving that. And even he came out on record recently to say that the Israelis are lying. They are dangling food in front of starving Gazans. In that very same piece by the BBC, and if you've seen Louis Theroux's The Settlers, you will know that not only are Israelis, and I hate to paint them all with the same brush, because you have people like, for example, Gideon Levy, who are still fighting this good fight and are opposing this. You had those two Israeli NGOs who have denounced their own government and said that they are committing genocide. You had all of those people out in the streets of Tel Aviv speaking for Palestinians and saying Palestinian lives matter. But it's hard to separate these two. It's hard to separate Zionists and Israelis when a state that apparently, according to that recent poll, 82% want them sort of, to wipe out Gaza. But it's hard to separate the wheat from the chaff when you see, both in The Settlers and in this report, they have actually constructed a viewing platform for Zionists to go and marvel at this destruction, this sort of charred ruin that is Gaza. People are going there, they're taking selfies. There's the viewing platform, they have those binoculars where you can actually sort of eye the beachfront property where these settlers are going to sort of rebuild Gaza and redeem the land, according to Daniela Weiss. And then they say that we have the right to exist. There are vending machines installed on this platform so that you can crack open a soda while you see Gazans starve to death. That is this nation that now stands proud of its achievements, proud of having murdered 20,000 children, proud of having shot up medics and bulldozed houses and crushed what's it called patients lying out and starved out infants in the maternity ward, and now allowing all of these children to starve. Why? Oh, because of Hamas? Oh, because they want to recover the hostages? I don't see what right you're speaking of when you have denied those very same rights to another people. Say it with me. Zionism is racism. And as racism, it denies another people their rights. It denies their right to exist. It does not even consider them human beings. Again, watch the settlers. Hear the language with which they refer to the Palestinians. Camel riders, Arabs, they say it with such contempt. There is not a sympathetic bone in their body. Daniela Weiss's interview with Piers Morgan. I mean, how many times does he ask her to offer even a modicum of sympathy for the children that have died? But no, there is none. Because again, that victimhood upon which the state of Israel was created has now blinded them to any other people. I remember a very long time ago, I had the privilege of interviewing Mr. Gideon Levy. And I posed a question to him, quoting another Israeli writer, Amos Oz, that this Israel-Palestine conflict is not right against wrong, but right against right. That the Palestinians were right, and the Israelis were also right. But no. Gideon Levy replied to me and said that, no. It is, of course, a right against wrong. And while for 75 years, everyone has sought to deny that a wrong was done to the Palestinians, when their land was given over not to people of that land, but to sort of settlers from Europe and New York and here and there and whatnot. Why didn't they carve out pieces of Germany to give to them? What did the Palestinians, what did they do wrong? We often look to the West, or at least sort of the way that it's always trumped up, that sort of Western ideals, democracy, these are sort of the pinnacles of human achievement, of civilization almost. English, this lingua franca that we're now speaking in, is sort of like, the very epitome of it all. And that we must look to the West as our leaders. The very same West that condones the murder of children, the very same West that starves children, the very same West that continues to fund Israel, the very same West that condemns a people for their right to resist. That is the West that we are meant to look up to. Their legacy is nothing more than ashes. Their legacy is nothing more than that of murderers and rapists and thieves. And when you look at them and when you remember these names in years to come, Biden, Trump, Starmer, your US Congress, your US Senate, the EU, Germany, these are not countries that will be remembered for their contributions to civilization. Maybe perhaps they will, maybe I'm taking a little too far. But in that very same breath, they will be remembered for this. Gaza will forever be an albatross around their neck. And at least it is my prayer that they will never be made to forget.
The revolution will be live.